Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Can we get a Greentext, spoopy story thread going? Post original content or screen captures. Feel free to make requests. Anything ranging from ghosts, demons, or skinwalkers, to cryptids and real-life horrors. I'll start. I started doing magic when I was 14. In the beginning started doing some heavy shit, not really knowing what I was doing. The first time was just to get my foot in the door. Learned about the Lesser Key of Solomon. Went down to a crossroads beneath a church a little bit from my house. Live out in the country. Nobody else is going to be out there at 2 a.m. Draw the diagrams in the middle of the road, i.e. the circle and triangle of Solomon, although tailored style as a chaos magician. In the middle of nowhere, cold as fuck, in the middle of the road, 2 a.m. No flashlights or anything cause I live around here. Begin to ask that something come forward. Don't have any particular demon in mind. Just trying to summon something. Suddenly begin to hear movement in the trees to my right and hear a roar coming from the woods as snow begins to fall from the sky. Speak a little more and feel it around me. Snow falls harder and harder, until I have to close the ritual. Trek home through the snow in the dark, feel really eerie as the snow picks up. Hands are freezing. Numb. Get home. Wash off with hot water. Get ready to go out and do a bigger ritual with friends later that week. Go out to a known hiking trail in a small town that definitely didn't get cell signals and which had a tunnel at the entrance. The tunnel was pitch black in the center even during the day. Covered with spray paint. Some of it fucked up, like the number 666 and shit. We had a couple flashlights we had been able to put together. But as soon as we got in the tunnel and started walking in, they went out. Had to use our phones until we started setting up the candles. Made the diagrams with chalk and had a specific demon in mind from the Lesser Key of Solomon, but I can't remember what it was. Maybe if I go look it up. Friends decided that we would cut our hands and use some blood to help summon whatever was there. Told my friends not to leave the circle no matter what. Forgot to mention that on the drive up there, which was a ways into the woods, we saw a horse on the side of the road that was just standing there with no fence or anything, chewing at the grass. Stop the car cause a freaking horse. See that one leg is messed up and looks hurt. Leave and go on. This comes into play later. In the tunnel, in the circle, have cut our hands with the knife and try speaking to entity to come to us. I'm the one leading us. The main one speaking and asking to show us its presence. Suddenly shadows at the exit and entrance of the tunnel seem to be moving. Pointed out to friends who immediately get weirded out by it. I'm like, no, this is all probably just our eyes playing tricks on us. Keep going. Suddenly begin to see two red dots at the exit of the tunnel. Begin to hear chirping or a sort of whistle. Wait a minute. JPG. This could be a wild animal out here in the middle of nowhere and we are just sitting here in the dark tunnel waiting to get eaten. Nope. Tell friends we need to go. Get up and break the circle without banishing or closing the ritual. Step right out into whatever we summoned. Run out of the circle without any sort of banishing or closing. As we are running, me and my friend, K, hear a roar as if it is coming from right in our ears and it makes us stop. K stands in the middle of the tunnel and I fall against the wall for support. Our other friend, J, just keeps running as if nothing happened. WTF. No lights, everyone is scared half to death trying to get out a phone to use the last bit of battery for a flashlight. Make it out of the tunnel. Freaked out, but J needs to take a piss. K and I walk on ahead and wait for him. Talk a little bit until Jay comes back. In the moonlight, just right, it looks as if Jay is a fucking horse. Like a shining, ethereal horse aura or something. Remember the one we saw on the drive up there? K sees it too. Also WTF. Tell them we need to go off into the woods for just another couple minutes to do a banishing ritual and get off any bad energy. Do so. Not yet strong enough. Didn't understand one banishing, half rushed, would not be enough. End up going home and sleeping it off. No plans to meet for a few days because of school. I think that I'm safe because I've been doing banishing rituals every day and don't think anything could get through. Next morning go for a daily run through the neighborhood. Get a short way from the house and see a dead canine-type creature just sitting in the middle of the road with its gut torn out across the dirt path. Can't even tell if it is a dog or fox or what. Too big to be a fox, but it didn't look exactly like a dog. It was strange. Keep running. Kind of think it is weird but not too sure yet. Eventually, as I'm running about to step down, when I see a copperhead right below my foot. Swerve on my right foot to jump over it instead of stepping down, barely miss stepping right on the head. Terrified of snakes, by the way. Spiders cool, but snakes? Nah. At this point realize that something weird is going on. Connect it to the ritual and decide that I need to contact Jay, decide we need to get rid of it for good. When I get home, open Facebook. Jay has already messaged me.
Hey man, I think we fucked something up last night.
Ask him what's going on. Says that all day people have been running red lights and almost hitting him with their cars. Freaked him out really bad and said that we should get rid of the demon, even before I brought it up. Decided not to tell K because he makes stuff up sometimes and wanted to know if it was real. Go over to Jay's house that night and do a full-on cleansing, exorcism or whatever. Nothing big happened, but after that we never had any more weird experiences related to that summoning. Seemed that we had gotten rid of it. I'll post another one, 16 or 17 by this point. Girl in one of my classes named S who I was kind of friends with. She was really cute but probably out of my league, anyways. She doesn't show up to class for a while. Figure out that her mother's self-end from gossip around school. Hanging out with Jay from the last story. Turns out his aunt also died in the home right beside where we did the cleansing from before. What? Are you related to S? Why, in fact, he is. And his father was staying with S's mother while she was depressed and now staying in the house where she self-ended. Things keep going on for a month or two. Have developed a bit of a reputation by this point for messing with the paranormal and spiritual. Jay's father being visited by negative energy and entities in the house where S' mother died. Contact me and ask if I can get rid of it for him. Say sure. Go over to the house. Prep to do another ritual that would get rid of the entity like in the past. Go inside. Don't ask any questions beforehand. Request complete silence during the cleansing. Walk around the home with holy water and herb mixtures. Cleansing the area. Get to the room where I can just feel that S' mother died. The energy was crazy dark in there. No one had ever told me where it happened, just knew. Had built up energy shields and layers of banishing rituals beforehand. As I stepped further into the room, felt a malevolent force try to break through all of them and take hold of my mind. Feel it in my head like a fucked up wave of depression or mind control. Didn't feel human. Fought it back with willpower and prayer. Go to the spot in the room where I knew she had done it. Jay's father is watching from behind. Verified later that this was, in fact, the spot. Cleanse it real good with holy water and prayers. Leave and tell them all what happened. No more bad juju after this incident.
Not me, but a friend of mine is a ranger up near the Canadian border, New York side. Asked him his most unnerving story. Was patrolling down the rivers and lakes, using a snowmobile since it was quicker than using it on trails. Checking on the shelters since they had a habit of collapsing under the heavy snowfall. Hours into his pass, he noticed some markings near the edge of the lake. Went over, and noticed some blood near the beach. The blood was on the ice, but went up to a rock face and went up a blood trail, right up a cliff, for 30 feet. Could see where the blood went over the lip of the cliff. Took the time to drive around to where there was an opening, stopped his snowmobile, and hiked up. Reached the top of the cliff after around 10 minutes. Blood trail from the cliff face went on around 20 more feet till it led to a deer carcass. Trampled snow around the carcass, ass of the deer eaten, but that's it. Couldn't make out the tracks. Checked the deer. Wasn't a hunter, they would have started skinning/gutting/taking it away. Wasn't a mountain lion, not strong enough to lug a 150-pound-plus deer 30 feet up a snowy rock face. Wasn't a bear. Couldn't climb a cliff either. Noticed the deer wasn't too cold either. Maybe been dead an hour, max. Got up, put his hand to his Glock, and walked back to his snowmobile. Drove off. He admits he has zero idea what could have done that to the deer, but knew that whatever did was probably still around and was just scared off cause it heard his snowmobile approach. Just an unnerving story from a guy who loves the outdoors and usually has an answer for everything.
Discovered how to enter into a trance when I was 22. Realized in this deep state of mind, I could beckon spirits to speak with me. My brother, deeply into spiritual studies, asked me to speak to specific entities on his behalf because he did not know how to accept it. Run through my meditation ritual, enter into a trance. Call out from my mind for the spirit, thinking about their symbol. Suddenly, a voice answers. It feels like I'm imagining it, but it's clearly being driven by a separate consciousness. I had spoken a Latin phrase, and the entity corrected me on my pronunciation. Remember this. I asked it my questions. The entity appeared as a goddess, a giant of a woman, perfectly shaped with hair flowing down her front and sides. I felt like an ant before her. She was kind and gentle in her advice. I let the entity speak using my mouth so that I could hear what they were saying more clearly, and recorded it with a voice recorder because my memory would get hazy after doing these spirit callings. Ended my call with her, thanking her for her time, which elicited a laugh. Play back the recording and take notes for my brother. Look up the pronunciation of the Latin I spoke, feeling confident that I had spoken it correctly. I was wrong, the spirit's suggestion was more accurate. It was quite a chilling experience for me. I realized that there was a lot going on that I understood very little about.
I spent a few months living with poltergeists in Grandpa's haunted house as a child. It wasn't always haunted. I lived there for nearly 2 years. It must have been roughly 5 months of torment before an incident with knives forced us to evacuate. My last week there was as hectic as the first week of the hauntings. On the last night I sat in the living room of an almost empty home waiting for Mom to take me away. Since the TV had been packed already, all I did was stare at this snowman plushie which had been possessed. The 8-inch snowman didn't really float or speak, it simply moved its eyes. Its eyes were glass with round, black paper cutouts within supposed to be its pupils. Those circle-shaped cuts would float to be its direction of sight. That final night it mainly stared at me with its sleepy-looking eyes, but would periodically dart away to look at my grandpa's direction. Grandpa kept making loud slamming sounds as he packed and stacked the last of his belongings into boxes, and that ruckus momentarily got the snowman's attention. The cycle would start off as a staring contest between us, then a smacking sound would break the tension, and then back to step 1. That was the last time I saw that possessed toy. I moved in with my parents who had just, funnily enough, moved in front of a church. This church had character. It had a life-size inflatable cowboy roped down on its roof. It was a stereotypical design, hat and all, and it was posed like a gingerbread man. Normally inflatable characters are parked on top of car dealerships, but I guess this church had an energetic owner. This was bumfuck literally where Texas after all. I never saw the church open or anyone at the entrance though. Back at my grandpa's, I slept in his and grandma's bed because no one was brave enough to sleep on the ground or the living room. At this new home, however, I had my own room and TV, finally. A few days after this new chapter opened, my mom got a call on her Nokia phone. My aunt, who lived in the same neighborhood, was asking Mom to describe the phantoms I had seen in that haunted the home I was temp fostered in. After an awkward pause, a description was given. She then exclaimed that there is something like that knocking on her door right now. The next day, for whatever reason, my mindlessly mom went over to see for herself. I was dragged along. As soon as I entered her home, which was at the back of the neighborhood, I then forgot why I was even there. I quickly settled in and began playing with my cousin, who was the same age as me. It wasn't apparent to me how dire the situation was until an hour into the good time that the knocking began. We all stopped our chattering and my aunt instructed us to stay out of the living room. She led the way to her bedroom window and opened the curtains. Everyone peered out through the blinds and in the direction of the front door. My mom exclaimed, "Yuha, that's the thing." The knocking was neither too loud or soft, but it was constant. After a minute, my aunt said it won't go away unless we hide in the bathroom, which was strangely enough at the back of her closet. After staying there a good half hour or so, the forever knocking finally stopped. It was an anxiety-inducing experience, though I was used to the paranormal by then. What truly bothered me was the fact that I couldn't see anyone or anything, but I definitely heard the knocking. Because we are a family, we visited my aunt often enough. She explained that she dealt with the knocking daily but grew accustomed to simply waiting it out 20 minutes in the bathroom. Fortunately for me, this was but a weekly experience during visits. The sequence of events always went the same. I enjoyed hanging out with my cousin, then the knocking made us all run to peer through the bedroom window. We then hid a while before being able to continue living. Yet every time I failed to see the spirit. This frustrated me. I personally nicknamed this knocking ghost the Bill Inspector. I believe I did this because I saw a cartoon of a guy who always knocked on a character's door to collect bills. He was persistent. Of course, my pronunciation failed as a child, so I said inspector instead of collector. When we took refuge in the bathroom, there wasn't really much to do, of course. We didn't have smartphones at the time. My cousin and I played with toys we sneaked in while our parents discussed moving homes again. During these enclosed meetings, I noticed her husband was never around when the knocking began because he was at work every day. It was also during these meetings that I learned my grandma gave that snowman plushie to my cousin. Her parents threw it out the day before the knocking began because it kept whispering death threats at night. Another thing I noticed during these knocking episodes is that absolutely no one was outside when this happened. Not a single car on the road. No neighbor outside smoking a cig. No child on a bike. It all felt staged. No one was brave enough to peer through the living room window either. It's too close to the front door. Being in the bathroom eventually bored my senses. Whenever we all entered the bathroom, we never left it until the ever knocking stopped. Until this day. I opened the door just to see if anything was by the bedroom window this time. My aunt screamed, "No," when I turned the doorknob. I did regret this. Standing parallel to me, I saw a silhouette of a man behind the curtains. It was standing precisely in front of the bathroom door. It knew. That day the knocking didn't stop until damn near 3 hours. My mom and aunt were very furious at me. What was disturbing about this was the way the silhouette was standing. Both its arms were against the window and hands in front of its head. It was as if it used its fists as binoculars. As I explained earlier, I was used to creepy sightings like this. Rather than being traumatized, I felt curious over time. Thankfully, the family bond was still strong, so the weekly trips to my aunt's kept flowing. I was adamant on seeing that phantom's face now. When the day came, the day panned out as normal. I was watching VHS movies with my cousin until the bill inspector made its presence known. For once I was the first to push the curtain aside and press my face against the window. The bedroom window, of course. Despite the pleas and demands from my family in the bathroom to join them in hiding, I stayed at the window. I was on my knees and my eyes in the direction of the front door. Their whining began to annoy me, so I began to argue back. The knocking sound played in the background throughout all this. When I talked back, I turned to face behind me to look at my mom. She yelled and yelled until finally she gasped and looked above my head. I turned around and saw the poltergeist, only an inch of glass between us. It had climbed onto the window stool to appear taller. Back in my address, I didn't have to deal with the bill inspector. The only thing outside my window was that church, its cowboy hat, and the pretty paintings of fruit by the parking lot part of its wall. Despite being by a main road, it was a pretty quiet life. One night I heard a car skirt right outside. I didn't think much of it until it was followed up by 3 bangs at my front door. My knees wobbled and my heart sank. My mom took a quick look outside, then opened the door. It was my aunt, and she was frantic. She explained that she was being chased by another car. She said she has been driving in circles around the same block trying to shake the stalker off. Both mom and aunt went to the front window to peer outside. They pointed and whispered a bit. Aunt then expressed her frustration at being late to see her family and simply ran back out. Finally, there was room for me at the window. I saw my aunt start her car and speed away. Mom and I waited for a car to follow, but that never happened. Moments later, Mom left the window and simply told me to not open the door to anyone. I stayed by my front window, alone, to find the stalker. Since there was a parking lot in front, I had a lot of car passenger seats to scope out. Not a single person in sight. I grew stressed again. Yet another ghost I can't see. Something felt off, however. Something was out of place. I can't give up searching now. Let's scope again. It's dark out, so it's easy to miss someone. Eventually, I did what I thought was pointless to do and looked at the church entrance. I thought it was abandoned since it never seemed to be open. It was only then that I noticed a car by the church entrance, front hood facing the main road to the right. It was then that I noticed what had been misplaced. Inside the car was, I swear to God, the inflatable cowboy. It looked stiff, its hands on the wheel. I was filled with dread as I hoped it wouldn't turn in my direction. I had school the next morning. When I went outside to get to class, the car wasn't there. I never saw that balloon cowboy ever again. The hauntings that followed me from the first home didn't end there either. They targeted my school next.
I've had something like this. Was taking a nap on my sofa at home after staying up doing schoolwork for a couple of days. I dream of something or other that must have involved a cat, as you shall see. Something wakes me up, like my dad doing something in the kitchen or other. As I open my eyes and look toward the kitchen door, I see, as clear as day and as real as the walls, sofa, carpet, and bookshelves around me, the cat from my dream padding through the doorway. We've had foxes come into our house before when the back door in the kitchen's been left open, so it wasn't entirely unusual despite not owning a cat. But just as I am waking further up and seeing this cat, the cat freezes. Literally, as if time had been stopped only around the cat. It starts to turn into strange little pixels of various colors similar to what you see when you bang your head or get up too quickly and see stars. As the cat turns into the pixels move around slightly then disappear, giving the whole cat the impression of dissolving or teleporting into the ether. I don't believe in paranormal shizzle in the sense of the unexplained, so I knew it was just a dream hallucination, but it gave me a really interesting view into how perception and vision works in the mind nonetheless. It's amazing how utterly accepting I was of the cat's existence. Like another completely normal little bit of my day, till it dissolved. That kinda scared me, I think, because I started to wonder what else I might be completely accepting despite it not actually being real. Cue nervous breakdown 3 years later. This board did not do wonders for my mental health, ha.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.